What is going on, Pacer Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice Pacers. Well, guys, the Indiana Pacers season is about over, guys. It's crazy that we are already to April and the Pacers, their season is winding down after the latest loss tonight to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Indiana Pacers only have 4 games left in the 2026 regular season. It's kind of wild to me, guys, that we're already reaching this point for the Indiana Pacers. Now, I know a lot of fans are kind of relieved because, okay, now we can finally, after the season is over, stop rooting for the Pacers to lose at this point, right? With nothing left to gain at this point, people hoping the Pacers get as far away from potentially losing out on a top 3 pick as possible. And obviously, right now, Indiana is the second worst record in the NBA. You know, obviously, there's a few more games left to go here, so we'll see if they stay there, if they go up anymore. You know, right now, it's kind of going to be interesting to see how these last 4 games do play out. But I think a lot of fans just right now rooting for losses, hoping for development of young players. And that's kind of what you look forward to. And obviously, all eyes are going to be on looking forward to where the Indiana Pacers do end up during the NBA draft lottery coming up here in May. So with that being said, guys, as I've kind of been thinking this year, obviously been a lost year with, Tyrese Halliburton getting injured, sitting out the entire year, his recovering from that Achilles injury, and then, moving forward into looking, to the future here. Obviously, there was a lot of issues that happened this year for the Indiana Pacers. And like I said, some young players getting a lot of opportunities this year to kind of prove their worth with the Indiana Pacers. And so we kind of just chalked it up to, hey, you know what? We got our first round pick back from New Orleans. We're going to lose. And if we're going to lose, we might as well lose and potentially get the opportunity to take one of the top prospects in the 2026 NBA draft. And so that's kind of where Pacers fans are right now when it comes to that. And I think we've definitely seen a lot of development from some players that, at the start of this season, some players that we didn't necessarily view as players that could be a part of the Indiana Pacers' future. Some of these guys, yes, but then there was also some players that I think really showed you some stuff. And obviously the Indiana Pacers 2026 roster is going to look a lot different than this 2025/2026 roster as it stands right now. Pacers are going to be getting back, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton, and they're going to be getting back some other pieces as well in 2026. So that's definitely exciting. On top of, obviously, the draft pick as well, potentially a top 3 draft pick, depending how the board does fall there and the lottery falls for them. But I really wanted to kind of talk about this, guys, because it kind of got my brain like running a million miles a second, because I was looking at this Indiana Pacers roster and I was like, holy smokes, like this roster has so much variety on it, right? From, players who have been in the league for quite some time, some established high-end superstar guys. Obviously, like I mentioned, a potential top 3 prospect coming into the 2026 draft that the Pacers are going to have on their roster. And then a bunch of young guys that, have been given opportunities this year and I think have shown some things. And so it kind of got my brain running. And I was just thinking, like, how in the world is this roster going to look, right? Who's going to be on the outside looking in when the Indiana Pacers tip off in October this year? It's going to be really interesting to me how this does play out, because there's just so many players that I think have made cases for themselves this year. And there's still some players that I think still need to develop and will have an opportunity to do so, hopefully with Indiana. But I wanted to kind of look at this right now, guys, because, as it stands right now, obviously we know, going into 2026, the Indiana Pacers can only have 12 guys active, right? 15 guys on the roster, only 12 guys active on their, given game day. So as we look at it, guys, I just kind of want to run down this list and just kind of talk about, obviously, some of the guys that we know will likely be on this roster, but then some other guys that I think are going to kind of be on the fringe moving into 2026. And so obviously, if, the season tipped off right now, everybody was healthy in 2026, I think we could agree, minus the draft pick, because we don't know what that's going to be or who that's going to be. But right now, I think as you look at it, you kind of know your 5, right? It's going to be Andrew Nembhard at the point. Tyrese is going to be your shooting guard. We know probably Aaron Nesmith's going to be that small forward for you. Is going to be the 3. And then you have Pascal Siakam, and then you have Ivica Zubac there at your center position. So your starting five pretty much not in question. And obviously, if the Indiana Pacers, if they do end up taking, for example, AJ DeBenza somehow, he falls to the Indiana Pacers, or the Pacers get the number one pick and they take him, then, obviously there's going to be some question marks about that small forward position. But as it stands right now, that's your starting five. And I think that's a pretty darn good starting five right there for the Indiana Pacers when healthy. And then there's a couple other guys that I would talk about. Throw in the draft pick, because obviously they're going to make the roster. They're going to be probably a top 3 guy coming out of the draft. They're going to make the roster unquestionably. And then I would say some other guys that I would say are key role players for you that are definitely going to make the roster. I think Obi Toppin is certainly a guy that can be your backup center and can really help you out in a lot of spots. We know Obi Toppin missed a lot of time this year, but he's definitely shown out for the Indiana Pacers and the chances he's gotten this year. So I definitely think he's a guy that can play a little bit of the power forward, a little bit of center for you there. He's just a nice, valuable piece there off the bench for you, when we obviously know how valuable he was for the Pacers in their championship run all the way to the NBA Finals last year. He's a very, very valuable piece for them. So I definitely say keep Obi Toppin around 100% there. TJ McConnell's a given as well. I mean, he's just the guy that makes that second unit really roll, right? He's the guy that's commanding everything, making it happen. He's a pest. Whatever he lacks in size, he certainly makes up for in aggression and just overall just intensity. So TJ McConnell, unquestionably one of the biggest leaders and key parts of that bench. So I'm definitely keeping, obviously, TJ McConnell. And then I was really impressed by Jarace Walker this year. Coming in, there were certainly a lot of questions, with Jarace Walker. Was he ever going to evolve into a key part of this Pacers team? And I definitely think he showed with opportunities this year that he can certainly have a role with this team. And he's still a very young player as well. And I think the sky is still the limit for Jarace Walker. I was very impressed with what he did this year. So I would definitely throw him in there, because I think he's definitely somebody that bears worth at least talking about. And like I said, he's still a player that I think you really feel like if he continues to ascend and continues to build off of this year, I think you feel like he can be a guy that moving forward, he can be a key part of this team, which is really exciting. I mean, this was only year 2 for him, and you really feel like he's going to continue, to evolve into a key contributor for this basketball team. So I definitely would say Jarace Walker's a player I would throw out there as well. Another guy at that power forward position that I would definitely say can contribute to your team 100%. So I would say those guys for sure. I would also probably throw in Quentin Jackson, because he did just sign a 3-year deal in February. So I think that's a clear sign that the Indiana Pacers want to keep him around. And obviously he's been balling out ever since he got the opportunity this year. And I really think you like what he provides for you as well. He's definitely a player that I would keep around if I'm the Indiana Pacers. Just one of those guys that, never really got an opportunity and definitely got one with Indiana this year. And I think he's definitely a guy that you want to keep around if you're Indiana. And he's still a fairly young player as well. And obviously, when you look at your guard position right now, outside of obviously, your 2 starters and then TJ McConnell, there definitely is a need with losing Benedict Mathurin in that trade to get, some quality guard play. So I definitely would say Quentin Jackson's a player you keep around. Another player who, similar to Quentin Jackson, got an opportunity and I really think has made a strong impression this year would be Jalen Slauson. I mean, another strong performance he had against the Cavs. I definitely think that he's a player that I want to keep around as well. You're noticing this trend with these guys, like players that were kind of afterthoughts for a lot of people, right? That, people were kind of writing off, right? And the Pacers gave them an opportunity this year and they've definitely played well. And you feel like moving into 2026, they can help you on the bench. So I definitely think that he's a guy you want to keep around there. That's really it for me, guys. I think like those players in particular are the players that I would say 100% I want to keep around for the Indiana Pacers. No questions about it. Now, there are some other players that I would also say can make strong cases, on their own. Kobe Brown would be another guy that I would definitely throw in there. He's played well when he's been given opportunities this year. He obviously came over in that Zubac trade. It kind of was like with the Aaron Nesmith trade, right? A lot of people said he basically got traded for a paperclip. I mean, he kind of was just thrown into that trade, right? So he's definitely, I think, a player that you feel like, okay, he can really, potentially help us out here. And he's definitely found So and played good basketball for the Indiana Pacers when called upon. So he would be another guy that I would potentially consider there because I think he's definitely shown you that he can be a player that you really feel comfortable with. So if you're looking at it right now, you have your starting five, you have your draft pick, which is 6, Toppin is 7, McConnell is 8, Walker is 9, Jackson's 10, Slausen's 11, Kobe Brown is 12, right? So I mean, really, I think a lot of these guys are not really going to play a whole lot, obviously, unless an injury does happen for you next year. Some of these other guys aren't really going to play. They're probably just mostly going to be on the bench for you, but potentially be guys that, you feel like are going to help you out, potentially if you need them to, but not necessarily going to be guys that are playing, 10 to 15 minutes per game. That's not going to be a reality for you. But some other guys that I would say also that I would consider, right? So if you say, for example, like Kobe Brown, that one I'm kind of 50-50 on because you already do have some other power forwards on your team right now that maybe you just don't feel like you need to keep another guy. Maybe you want to go more, like to go more guards here. I don't know. But regardless of what you do, there's still some other guys that I definitely think bear considering as well. Obviously, you got to talk about Ben Sheppard, who I know a lot of Pacers fans aren't necessarily the biggest fan of, but I mean, Ben Sheppard, he was a key part of your bench in that championship run last year. So he's definitely a guy that I think he definitely has his issues, don't get me wrong, but he's a player that certainly has the experience and has helped you out and has come through in moments when you've needed him in the past. Now, I certainly think you can upgrade from Ben Sheppard, but he's definitely a guy that I think will be, in consideration, in the back end of that rotation there on your bench. So I definitely think he's a guy to bear monitoring there. Micah Potter would be another guy that I would throw in there as well. I think he has played extremely well for the Indiana Pacers. And I actually might put Micah Potter ahead. And as I'm thinking about it, I might put him ahead of Kobe Brown, to be honest with you, because I think he's played that well for you. If you're the Pacers, you definitely need to find a backup center, a guy that you feel like you can rely upon. Jay Huff's another guy that I would definitely consider as well because he's shown you some things. He definitely has his issues as well, but he's definitely shown you that he can have a role as well. So you see what I'm saying, guys? Like there's just so many players on this roster. It's like, where do you make the cut, right? Because if you're only playing 12 guys a night, who's getting cut here, right? And that's not even to mention all the players that, I think performed well when given opportunities as well that are younger, that I think have potential, right? Like, for example, Cam Jones. You took him pretty high, in that second round last year, and he gave him some good money. So obviously you feel like he has potentially some sort of role for you in the future, maybe. He would be a guy that I would throw in there. Talen Peter, he's definitely down there a little bit, probably beyond Cam Jones, but he's a rookie as well. I think he definitely showed some things when given opportunities. Ethan Thompson, another rookie that's shown some things for you. And then obviously whenever Johnny Furphy gets back, that's another name that you have to watch out for as well. So you see what I mean, guys? It's crazy how many guys truly the Indiana Pacers have on their roster that I really think you can make an argument for. Now, I think really whatever happens with kind of that 12th man, I think is going to really be the thing I'm watching, that 11th and 12th man, depending what the Pacers want to do there. Like I said, guys, they've got so much depth on this team. It's almost insane, actually. And I think when you look at them versus other teams, I think the Pacers personally have the best depth in the NBA at this point. I really do. And when they get back healthy, I think you're going to see that shine. I really do. I really, really do. So, yeah, guys, I just wanted to kind of bring this up because this was really something that was on my mind today as I was thinking about this. And I was kind of looking at the Indiana Pacers roster and looking forward to 2026. I just really think that the Indiana Pacers have a lot to like moving forward. They have their guys, in their starting five that you really feel confident in. Obviously, Pascal coming off that all-star type of season that he had. We know what Zubac can do. He can be an all-star. Tyrese definitely has his moments as well. And then you're potentially getting, one of the better prospects in quite some time. If you do end up, with a top 3 pick, you're getting a really high quality prospect here that's going to factor into your team one way or another. So there's a lot to like here, guys, all that to say. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this Indiana Pacers roster right now, because I'm liking what I'm seeing from this Indiana Pacers team, not just from a starting 5 standpoint, but also just from a pure depth standpoint and a roster standpoint. I personally think the Indiana Pacers, with their system and what Rick Carlisle likes to do, I really think the Pacers are a team that can get the best out of almost anybody. Like, I really think the Pacers are that type of team that you can just plug them. If they feel like it's a roster fit, a player can plug in and have some of their best years with the Indiana Pacers because of the system that the Pacers run. And we've seen it this year, like I said, with guys like Quentin Jackson, Jalen Slauson, Kobe Brown, and so many other guys. You really feel like whoever the Indiana Pacers elect to go with and who get minutes here on the bench, you just feel like all those guys are really going to be huge for them and they're going to play well. So it's very exciting to see, guys, moving forward into 2026. And I am going to be monitoring this during the summer. And obviously, a ton of these guys are going to get run, this summer, and you're going to get a better look at some of these young guys. So I'm really excited for that, guys. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below in regards to this Indiana Pacers roster. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much. Like I said, guys, the Indiana Pacers only have 4 more games left in the 2025-2026 season. So we're excited, guys, to see where the Indiana Pacers do end up in the standings. And then obviously come May, where the Indiana Pacers do end up in the draft lottery as well. But, guys, again, that'll do it for this one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Pacers.